Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really diving headfirst into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life,
Right.
which I gotta say, even just getting ready for this, like, it's a book that sparked so many conversations, so many debates. Some people, they finish this book and they're like, my life has changed.
Totally.
Others are, well, let's just say, a little less enthusiastic. But the point is, it's gotten people thinking. So, expert speaker, what is it about this book? What's the headline here? Why all the buzz?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. It's kind of incredible how Peterson takes all these different threads, right? You've got psychology, philosophy, even ancient myths, and he weaves them together into this really compelling narrative.
Okay, so it's not your typical self-help book.
Definitely not. This is about personal responsibility. It's about finding meaning in a world that, let's be honest, can feel pretty chaotic sometimes. And, he's not afraid to really dig into the nitty-gritty of the human condition.
Yeah, and we've read the reviews. It seems like people either really connect with his message or, well, let's just say they have a strong reaction.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's no middle ground with this book. You've
Yeah.
got folks calling it insightful, thought-provoking, life-changing even, and then you've got others who are like, whoa, this is a bit much.
Yeah, like that one reviewer who said they just skipped over the parts where the Bible was the only source.
Oh, exactly.
Like,
No.
whoa! But even if you don't agree with every single point he makes, every single argument, even the critics seem to agree on one thing Peterson makes you think.
Absolutely.
He challenges your assumptions, maybe even makes you a little uncomfortable at times. So for our listeners who haven't delved into the depths of Peterson's thinking just yet, what are some of the big takeaways? What are people saying really resonated with them?
So one of the big ones, and this comes up again and again, is this idea of order versus chaos.
Okay, I heard him talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of central to his whole worldview. He sees life as this constant struggle, right? Chaos represents uncertainty, suffering, the unknown. And then you have order, which is stability, meaning a sense of control. And he argues that a lot of the anxiety we feel, a lot of the problems we face come from this primal fear of chaos.
It's like we're all trying to navigate this chaotic world, searching for those little pockets of order, those little islands of stability. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people today, right? I mean, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with information, constantly under pressure to succeed, constantly facing uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to process. And Peterson's saying, we're hardwired to try and make sense of it all.
Yeah, and one of the ways we do that, according to Peterson, is through taking personal responsibility.
Okay, so instead of feeling overwhelmed by all the chaos, focus on what you can control.
Right. Own your choices, your actions, your life. He's really big on this idea of agency. Even in the midst of all that chaos, you have the power to choose how you respond.
So it's not about pretending the chaos doesn't exist. It's about like how you show up in the face of it.
Exactly. And he doesn't just, throw these big abstract ideas at you. He gets really specific too. Like, that rule, clean your room.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of basic.
Right, but he uses it as a metaphor, right? It's
Yeah.
not just about having a tidy space. It's about taking control of your immediate environment. It's about starting small.
Creating a little bit of order in the midst of all the chaos.
Exactly. And from there, you build those habits, those little rituals of responsibility and self-discipline, and gradually that sense of order, it expands outward.
So it's like you're not going to fix everything overnight, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And for Peterson, that somewhere is, well, sometimes it's literally your bedroom.
Exactly. It's about those small steps, even just standing up straight with your shoulders back.
Oh, yeah, he talks about that too.
It can actually change your psychology, right? You start carrying yourself with a sense of purpose, a sense of self-respect.
So it's like fake it till you make it, but like with a psychological basis?
Right. You're not just pretending. You're actually changing your physiology, your mindset through these small, deliberate actions.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. You've got the chaos and the order. You've got the personal responsibility, the small steps leading to bigger change. But, like, if life is about more than just creating order, how does Peterson address finding meaning? Where does that fit in?
That's where things get even more, I don't know, profound, I guess.
Okay, so how so?
Peterson's not just saying, hey, get your life in order and everything will be peachy. He's getting at something deeper. He says, like, true meaning, real fulfillment. It often comes from confronting the chaos, from embracing the challenges, pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone.
So it's not about seeking constant happiness or avoiding suffering at all costs.
Right. It's about finding something worth enduring pain for. It's about aligning yourself with something bigger than yourself, something that gives your life purpose, direction. And that's where things can get kind of tricky, right? Because how do you actually find that why? It all sounds a bit, abstract.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big question. Like, where do you even start?
Well, Peterson's got some really interesting ideas about that too. He talks a lot about like ancient myths and stories
Okay.
and how those stories, even though they were told thousands of years ago, they can still provide like a roadmap for navigating life's challenges today.
A roadmap? Like, what do you mean?
Okay, so think about like the classic hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
You've got your hero, they face some kind of chaos, they have to overcome obstacles, and ultimately they're transformed by the experience. And Peterson's saying those stories, they tap into something universal about being human, this desire to find meaning through struggle, through growth.
So he's not saying we should all go out and slay dragons, literally, right?
No, no, not literally. But he's saying, find your metaphorical dragons. Figure out what you're willing to struggle for. What values are you willing to stand up for, even when things get tough?
Okay, I like that. So it's less about having all the answers and more about, like, the journey itself.
Exactly. It's about constantly striving, learning, growing. And that ties back into personal responsibility, right?
Because if you want a meaningful life, you have to be the one to create it.
Exactly. And part of that, a big part of that, is being honest with yourself about who you are, where you are, what you want.
Honesty. Got it.
Peterson talks a lot about telling the truth, or at least, not lying as a way to live more authentically, to create a life that actually reflects your values.
So those little white lies we tell ourselves, those moments where we compromise our own integrity, they all add up.
They do, and they make it harder, he would say, to live a truly fulfilling life. And it's not just about being honest with yourself, it's about being honest with others, too.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Communication. Clear, precise communication. That's another big thing for Peterson. It's about saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and creating that sense of order in our relationships, too.
He even gives, like, practical communication tips.
Yeah. Like that one, assume that the person you're listening to might know something that you don't.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. It's a good one.
It is. And it speaks to this, like, humility that Peterson values so much. This openness to being wrong, to learning from others.
Which can be hard, right? Admitting you don't have all the answers.
It can be, but it's also incredibly freeing. So we're talking about ancient wisdom, psychology, communication, personal responsibility. It's a lot. And Peterson doesn't shy away from more, shall we say, complex topics either.
Oh, right. And I think that's what sparks so much debate around his work.
Right. Like his views on, say, gender roles.
Yeah, that's a big one. And, some of his interpretations of different cultural figures.
Right, right. Those are definitely hot button topics. And Peterson, he doesn't shy away from them. In fact, some might say he kind of jumps right into the fire.
He does. And, that's something the reviewers pointed out, too. Some were, like, really uncomfortable with those sections. They felt like, whoa, this is, maybe even offensive.
Right.
Others, though, they saw it as like a breath of fresh air. Like, finally, someone's willing to have these conversations, even if they're difficult, even if they're controversial.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes Peterson so, I don't know, polarizing. He's not afraid to challenge the status quo. He's not afraid to ask tough questions.
Exactly. And whether you agree with his answers or not, you have to admire the fact that he's, like, engaging in the arena.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not just preaching to the choir. He's out there trying to have real conversations about real issues.
And I think that's so important, especially these days when it feels like, everyone's retreating into their own echo chambers.
Right, exactly. And even if you disagree with Peterson completely, even if you find some of his views like totally off base, he still forces you to confront your own assumptions, your own biases.
Like he's holding up a mirror, right?
Yes. And that can be uncomfortable for sure, but it's also how we grow. It's how we learn. It's how we become more open-minded, more understanding.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. Chaos versus order, finding meaning, the importance of truth-telling, even some of the more controversial aspects of Peterson's work. But I think When it comes down to it, there's like a common thread running through all of it.
What's that?
This idea of personal responsibility, this
Right.
idea that we have the power to create our own lives, to find our own meaning, to become the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. It's empowering, you know?
It is, and I think that's why, even amidst all the controversy, Peterson's work resonates with so many people. Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel like we have some control over our own destinies. We all want to find meaning and purpose in a world that can often feel meaningless and chaotic.
Absolutely. And he gives us a framework for doing that. He gives us tools, ideas, things to think about, whether we agree with everything he says or not.
Exactly. This deep dive, it's not about telling you what to think. It's about giving you the information you need to form your own opinions, to challenge your own assumptions, and to keep exploring these ideas long after this episode is over.
So true. Keep those conversations going. Keep challenging yourself. Keep asking those tough questions.
Love it. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.